Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome to Satsang. Remember, the deeper teachings are always given in silence. Or I can say, the deepest teachings are given in silence, always. Our own thoughts are the only thing that detract us from receiving this teaching, the deeper teaching, the liberating teaching. Our own thoughts, which means all phenomena or any phenomena rising, any object. Hence the importance of this first part of satsang, which allows us to, in our own way, in our own time, become still, depending on our own conditioning, our vasanas, and how our conditioning is interacting and playing up at any particular moment in time. We find a way to stillness. Somehow or other. And this beginning part of satsang, which is in silence, that is an expression of that. That is an expression of the silent teaching, deeper teaching. That is happening always. If we just pay attention to it, if we just allow it, if we just listen to it, maybe listen is better than pay attention. Attention can become an act of the ego, whereas listening is more of an allowing that silent teaching to speak to us. Anyway, welcome again, everybody. Let us come together and give thanks to our beloved Guru Ramana. Let us give thanks to him silently, inwardly, in our hearts. We don't need to make a big show of it. All you have to do is be happy and think of him. That's it. That's how we can give thanks. It's a wonderful practice in itself. But to make a little show of it, just a little, would anybody like to read the invocatory verses?
O Sri Ramana, bestow your grace upon me, so that I may, in experience, flawlessly attain the unequaled and unsurpassed essence of the practice, sadhana, of self-knowledge, the excellent path, who am I, which you have discovered to be the central and foremost among all the various paths. O Sri Ramana, the heart, who through your grace protects me at every moment by guiding me along the correct path. Rise from within and teach me the true import of your divine and unequaled teachings, so that I may know them in their undefiled, pristine purity. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Om.
Thank you so much, Marcus. And you read that so beautifully. Thank you. I very much enjoyed that. Thank you. Does anybody have a teaching they would like to read? As you all know, Luke, thank you. Just before you come in, I'll remind everyone, as I always do, thank you, Luke, what the teaching is. Teaching's a verse or a sentence or a few sentences from one of the recommended reading texts as found on the recommended reading list on tomblast.com. Luke, welcome. What have you got to read to us? Over to you.
Hey Tom, hey everyone. I am reading something from The Most Direct Means to Eternal Bliss, and it will become very clear how much I've read since I shared a couple of weeks ago, not a load of pages. It's from the chapter on the Loving All method. The Loving All method can be summed up as follows. Love everything you perceive exactly the way it is. Love everything you experience exactly the way it is. Love every thought you have exactly the way as it is. Love those thoughts you think are good exactly the way they are. Love those thoughts you think are bad exactly the way they are. And then I'm just going to skip a tiny bit to the end. Love everything that happens just the way it is. Love every activity exactly the way it is. Love every experience exactly the way it is. Love everything exactly the way it is. I have a slightly amusing story from this morning. I was cycling to work and this driver overtook me very dangerously, like beeping his horn, and overtook me on the sort of Wandsworth roundabout system, which you may be familiar with, Tom. And he stopped at the lights and I caught up with him and I very calmly knocked on his window and said, you know, you need to, in the UK, there's a law, you have to give cyclists 2 meters. So I knocked on his window and I said, you didn't give me 2 meters. And he sort of said a bunch of stuff back, which wasn't very polite. And I said, you know, next time, make sure you give 2 meters, and then cycled on. But I'd read this last night and in my head I went, you know, I was quite riled up a little bit, not angry, but riled up because it was quite dangerous what he did. And then I just sort of said, love every thought you have exactly as it is. And that led to those emotions being let go very, very quickly. And throughout today, and those, that love's been there quite strongly, which has been very nice. So nothing too, I guess, nothing too, not a lot to say about it, just that it resonated a lot, and that the idea of, instead of trying to figure out what's paying attention to the thoughts, just loving them has been helpful in day-to-day life. That's all. Don't have to talk about it too much.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you for the reading. And thank you for the amusing and somewhat terrifying, but ultimately wonderful anecdote. I'm glad you're well. Glad you're safe and that no harm came to you. And I'm sure he will definitely give every single cyclist now wide berth of 2 meters, if not more. I'm sure. But thank you for sharing the power of these teachings with us all as well, with your testimony, your sharing. That's very powerful. Because these teachings are very simple. Very simple. And if we just stick to the basics of the teaching, the very basics, that's all we need. We don't need the complicated teachings. Sometimes we do, but we don't really. We just need the simple teachings. And what you shared just demonstrated that so beautifully, I thought. But Luke, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Yeah, go for it.
So you said love everything. Now, what if a fist was coming towards you, coming towards your face, Luke? What would you do? Would you love that fist coming towards your face and let it hit you in the face?
No, he talks about that. He says, don't just watch the vase drop off the drop off the mantelpiece.
Would you like to read that part to us where he talks about that?
Sure. Let me find it.
Go for it, Luke.
The loving all method refers only to emotions. No changes in external behavior are required. For example, if a vase falls and you would normally try to catch it, you will also try and catch the vase while you are practicing the loving all method. You do not allow the vase to fall because you are loving the falling. You can love the falling, and you can also love the attempt at catching the vase. Do you want to read the punching thing as well? If someone were to try to punch you in the face, and if you would normally duck, you will also duck while practicing the loving all method. Loving the fact that someone is trying to punch you does not mean you will not duck. You also love ducking to avoid being punched. The loving all method is emotional acceptance. The loving all method is not changing your actions. I'll just do one more line because I highlighted this next line. The loving all method is like any skill. The more you practice, the more skill you gain.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you for indulging me. My question there. You've answered it perfectly. And I'm really happy to hear that you highlighted that last sentence. That's really good. It means you're picking out these individual lines of the teaching that are important to you as you read them. And that's a great line to pick out. A great line to pick out. The loving all method is like any skill. The more you practice, the more skill you gain. So then in the next paragraph, Michael Langford then explains that some of you may find this more difficult than others. Some of you might find this difficult in specific or certain situations compared to other situations. But practice will bring about the desired result in time. I'll read one more line from this chapter, the loving all method. There we go. The most direct means to eternal, not the most direct means. Oh, that's the most direct means to eternal bliss. There we go. It's the direct means to eternal bliss. Same book, different editions, formatted differently. It says here, because often the question comes up, which is the best practice? Or how do I practice when I'm in my daily life? When I'm going about my daily life? When I'm doing all the things I need to do in my life? How do I do self-inquiry? Michael Langford says, the loving all method, which is the method Luke has just been sharing with us, the loving all method is the most effective method that can be practiced while one is engaged in other activities. So if the question arises, what is the best practice to do while I'm engaged in activities? That sentence answers that. The loving all method is the most effective method that can be practiced while one is engaged in other activities. But can we practice the loving all method every day? And can we practice it during any type of activity? The next sentence answers that question. He says, the loving all method can be practiced every day during any and all types of activities. So if we understand what he's saying there, we have a practice for the entirety of the waking state. We're either doing one of the self-inquiry practices, and according to this text, it's the awareness watching awareness method or the abandon and release method. Or that's in a formal kind of meditation or practice session when you're not engaged in other activities, when you can have your eyes closed, when you don't at that point in time have responsibilities to attend to or activities that you have to engage with. And then when you're not in that situation, when you're having to perform various activities and tasks, you can do the loving all method. And these two help each other. The loving all method is a secularized, non-theistic version of karma yoga. Because this entire book is written without the need to believe in God or believe in any deity or higher power. That's my understanding, at least. If you believe in God or a higher power, or even in Bhagavan Ramana, you can then invoke him to help you love everything that happens. You say everything that is happening is God's will. Everything that happens is God's plan for me, and it is in my best interest. So I will accept and love everything that happens and give thanks to everything that happens and be happy in my heart, in my daily life. Which is a theistic version of the loving all method, karma yoga. Or as a form of bhakti yoga as well. You're giving thanks to God for every moment. Everything that happens, you say thank you. Or you love everything that happens. As Luke has explained, with the caveats of the vase and the punch. The fist flying towards your face, the vase toppling off the counter. These are the caveats to remember. It's an inward practice. It can transform your life. And it will greatly enhance any attempts at self-inquiry. Greatly. Greatly.
Thank you.
Welcome.
That's particularly good reading because I had, and I just noticed that just before the statement about on page 89 of the Green Book, it says, if you have a negative emotion while practicing the loving all method, you love the negative emotion. And that may not change the negative emotion, even if loving the negative emotion does not change the negative emotion. Continue to love the negative emotion and the experiences that created the negative emotion exactly the way they are.
That's right, Kathleen. That's right.
Anyway, thank you, Luke, bringing it up.
Yes, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Luke. And thank you, Kathleen, for also bringing out another part of the teaching, which is there in the book. But just as I got Luke to read out the bit about the vase and the punch and how you still might try and catch the falling vase, or you still might duck the punch that's hurtling towards you, you have brought out another aspect, that this loving all method isn't about going around with a rictus smile on your face, you know, the fixed clown-like grin, or, you know, constant grin. That's, you know, just plaster a smile over it, you know, as Luke's rapping on the driver's door, hello, you know, 2 meters, please. You know, that's not what this is about. It's not about being fake. That doesn't heal. And people see through it. Not that that matters, but many people do. It's about not suppressing and not, it's about not suppressing. It's about not suppressing the emotions and allowing them, loving them. Let me find that part in the text as well. Oh, yes. So this is on page 89 of the green book, the green version of the book. If you have a negative emotion while practicing the loving all method, you love the negative emotion. This may or may not change the negative emotion. Some people, some teachers say, I've heard some spiritual teachers say, you just allow the emotion and then it dissolves, right? You just love what's happening and then it dissolves. And maybe that happens, and it does happen. And hopefully many of you have had that kind of experience where you just allow something and then it dissolves. But you probably also had the experience where you allow the emotion and it doesn't dissolve. And you're like, come on. Again, with your little smile on your face. Come on. You're meant to dissolve. I'm allowing you. Now get out of here. You know? The teacher said you're going to go if I accept you and you're still here. Piss off. You know? So you said it a bit more eloquently than me, Kathleen, but you know, I'm trying to help all you guys remember this stuff. Even if, I'm carrying on from the text, even if loving the negative emotion does not change the negative emotion, continue to love the negative emotion and the experiences that created the negative emotion exactly the way they are. And this bit I like as well. Every day, continue to gain skill. Continue to gain skill at loving negative emotions exactly as they are. And eventually you may start to see some of the negative emotions change into love. But you see the subtlety here. Subtlety. Meaning we cannot expect that they will go away just by loving them. That's not the point. Eventually they will all go away. But in our practice, we cannot know whether that will happen or not. And we must allow things whether or not they go away or not. But there's another thing, Kathleen, that you said, which followed on from what I said as well, which is that if you bring God into this practice, if you're able to, not everyone is able to. As I said, this book is written without the need to believe in God. But if you believe in God, if you believe in some sort of higher entity, higher power, higher something, it makes the loving all method a lot easier. You know? When something bad happens to you, if it's not very bad, if it's a very minor thing, it's not too difficult to love it. You know? You get a paper cut. Oh, so annoying. And then you remember, oh, I should be practicing loving all method. Okay. I'm doing the loving all method now. It's okay. I'm okay. I'm loving the paper cut. But when something really bad happens, it's very difficult to love it without believing in God, without some faith in God. And what it comes down to is God does not make any mistakes. There are no mistakes. Everything's happening to you just as God planned. Everything is God's will. That means that everything is happening for your best. Everything's happening for you. God has made no mistakes. Everything is happening perfectly as it is meant to be happening. And it is okay. It is all okay. And it will be okay. Everything will be okay. Now, this attitude, this kind of attitude, this kind of inner conviction, deep faith, makes the loving all method much easier. And in that, as far as it makes the practice easier, it makes it more powerful. Because it means you will actually be able to do it. But whether you believe in God or not, you have no control over. Some of you will and some of you won't. Some of you will have more faith, some of you will have less faith. So wherever you're at, loving all method is wonderful. The loving all method also, as I said, it enhances your self-inquiry, and it can even go into become self-inquiry, because as you become happier in yourself, independent of what is happening around you, you see, loving all method means whatever's happening, you feel happy and in love, or you feel love and happiness no matter what's happening. You realize that loving all method starts to as it progresses, it starts off, well, oh, I love this happening, I love that happening, oh, this thing's happening, I'm loving that, that thing's happening, I'm loving that, good emotions happening, I'm loving that, bad emotions happening, I'm loving that. But then what it transforms into is, whatever's happening, I don't care, I'm just in love. Not with anything, I'm just in love. I'm just feeling love inside myself, within myself. That's what it becomes. And this is, so this becomes self-inquiry now, because this love is felt within the heart. It stops being, oh, I love the vase falling, I love my attempt to catch the vase. And it starts being, oh, just love. And then, oh, the vase is falling, oh, I'm attempting to catch the vase, sure, but love. And this love becomes in our hearts. And this becomes our being, the way we are. And this draws our attention inwards. And this, once our attention or a feeling gets drawn inwards towards the heart, this becomes self-inquiry. So the loving all method and self-inquiry are very closely aligned. And I often recommend, when you start your meditation, don't try, if you're a householder, like I think all of us are, then when you first try and introvert your mind towards the self, it's difficult. So one of the first practices to do is just to become aware of everything and allow everything to happen, which is basically the loving all method. So this is a great thing to do at the beginning of your meditation session. If you're doing the loving all method anyway in your life, this is why it makes then it's much easier to withdraw or inward, to draw the mind inwards.